The massive space station hung in the darkness between stars like a glowing city. Ships from dozens of different worlds docked at its ports every day. Inside the main meeting hall, creatures that looked nothing like each other sat around a huge table made of some kind of blue crystal. Commander Zixthera stood at the front of the room. Her body was made of living crystal that changed colors as she spoke. Light flowed through her like water through glass. She pressed a button, and a large screen appeared in the air above the table. "Council members, we have discovered a new species," she said. Her voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "They call themselves humans. They live on a small blue planet in the outer edge of our galaxy." The screen showed images of Earth. Green forests, blue oceans, and white clouds covered the planet. Cities with tall buildings dotted the surface. It looked peaceful from space. Admiral Krexnos laughed. He was tall and thin with gray skin and 4 arms. His people, the Nexari, had the best technology in the galaxy. "Another primitive world," he said. "What do they use for weapons? Sticks and stones?" Zixthera pressed another button. The screen now showed humans throughout history. Ancient warriors with swords and shields. Soldiers with muskets firing black smoke. Modern armies with tanks and jets. The images moved quickly, showing hundreds of years of human warfare. They used chemical explosives to throw metal projectiles, Zixthera explained. Their most advanced weapons still work by burning gunpowder or other chemicals. They call these weapons guns, cannons, and missiles. General Thokmar slammed his massive fist on the table. The Brutari warrior was covered in thick armor that grew from his own skin. Gunpowder? Chemical burns? My youngest child plays with better toys than that. The other council members made sounds that might have been laughter in their different languages. A creature that looked like a floating jellyfish with tentacles spoke in a high, singing voice. "Do they still hit each other with clubs, too?" "Actually, yes," Zixthera said, showing more images. "They also use knives, swords, and something they call hand-to-hand combat. Many of their soldiers train to fight without any weapons at all." This brought more laughter from around the table. Admiral Krexnos stood up and walked to the screen. His 4 arms moved as he spoke. "Look at this primitive technology. We have plasma rifles that can cut through any material. We have quantum disruptors that can tear apart matter itself. Our molecular destabilizers can make entire armies disappear." He pointed at an image of human soldiers carrying rifles. "These humans are still using weapons that shoot tiny pieces of metal. Can you believe it? While we manipulate the very forces of the universe, they throw rocks at each other." Zixthera nodded. "Their space travel is also very basic. They use chemical rockets to escape their planet's gravity. It took them months to reach their own moon. They have only recently begun to explore their own solar system." "How did they even develop space travel with such primitive minds?" asked the jellyfish creature. "They seem to be very persistent," Zixthera replied. "Even when their technology fails, they keep trying. They have a saying, if at first you don't succeed, try again. They appear to solve problems by using more force, rather than better methods." General Thokmar laughed again, typical of a primitive species. Instead of thinking smarter, they just hit harder, like cave animals. The screen showed more images of human conflicts, soldiers running through explosions, pilots flying planes through enemy fire, ships firing cannons at each other across oceans. All of it looked dirty and dangerous compared to the clean, precise warfare the galactic species were used to. "I also seem to enjoy fighting," Zixthera continued. "Their history is full of wars. They fight over land, resources, ideas even, things they call religions. They have been at war with each other for their entire recorded history," Barbaric whispered several council members. Admiral Krexnos returned to his seat. "Well, at least they should be easy to deal with. A few demonstrations of our technology should make them surrender quickly. No species can resist our advanced weapons. Should we contact them?" asked Zixthera. The council members looked at each other, so whispered in their own languages. Finally, General Thokmar spoke. "Yes, but carefully. We should invite one of their leaders here. Let them see real technology. Show them how much they need our protection. Would be educational for them," agreed Admiral Krexnos. "We could learn how warfare is supposed to work. Maybe we can help them move past their primitive phase. And in return, asked the jellyfish creature. The usual, said General Thokmar. Mining rights, territory, some of their population for labor. Nothing. Too demanding for such a simple species. Sixtara made notes on a device that looked like liquid light. I will prepare a message. We should sound friendly, but make sure they understand their place in the galactic order. Meanwhile, far away on Earth, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of humanity's first real starship. The ESS Liberty was not much to look at compared to alien vessels, but it was the best Earth could build. Morrison had been a Marine for 20 years before joining the space program. He was used to making do with whatever equipment he had. Communications officer, a young woman named Lisa Hayes, suddenly looked up from her station. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from deep space. It's not from any Earth station. Morrison felt his heart skip a beat. Are you sure? Yes, sir. The signal is using mathematical patterns and what looks like universal concepts. Someone is trying to talk to us. Morrison looked out at the stars through the ship's main window. Somewhere out there, other intelligent beings had finally noticed Earth. He wondered if humanity was ready for whatever came next. Put it through. To the main screen, he ordered. The message that appeared would change everything for the human race. But Jake Morrison had no idea how much the aliens would underestimate the species they thought was so primitive. 3 weeks later, the ESS Liberty arrived at the massive alien space station. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the viewing window with his mouth open. The station was bigger than any city on Earth. Ships that looked like flying jewels, metal flowers, and geometric shapes docked at hundreds of ports around its surface. I've never seen anything like it, whispered Lieutenant Amy Brooks. She was Morrison's tactical officer, a former Army Ranger who had joined the space program 2 years ago. Her job was to understand military threats, but this was beyond anything. She had studied. Sergeant Nick Romano pressed his face against the window. The engineer had worked on every part of the Liberty during its construction. Captain, that station has to be at least 50 miles across. How do they even build something that big? Corporal Lisa Hayes looked up from her communication station. Sir, they're sending us docking instructions. The translation software is working, but some of their words don't make sense in English. Morrison nodded. Do your best, Hayes. This is why we're here. It's a sleek ship that looked like it was made of liquid silver approached them. It was half the size of the Liberty, but moved like it weighed nothing. It guided them to a docking port that adjusted itself to fit their ship perfectly. As they walked through the airlock, Morrison felt like he was entering a dream.
Ow.
The walls seemed to be made of light itself. Floors that looked like glass held their weight easily. Strange music played from everywhere and nowhere. Commander Zixthera waited for them in a room that seemed to grow larger as they walked into it. Her crystal body sparkled with different colors as she moved. Welcome, humans, she said. Her voice came from the air around them rather than from her body. We are pleased that you accepted our invitation. Morrison stepped forward. Thank you for having us, Commander. We're honored to be here. Today we will show you how advanced civilizations conduct warfare, Zixthera said. Perhaps you will learn something useful for your species. She led them through corridors that seemed to change shape as they walked. Other aliens passed by, some floating, some walking on too many legs, some that seemed to be made of energy, rather than matter. All of them stared at the humans like they were looking at zoo animals. They entered a huge room with a dome ceiling that showed stars and planets. Admiral Crexnose stood in the center next to weapons that hung in the air without any support. Humans, he said, his forearms moving as he spoke. These are real weapons, but not the primitive tools your species uses. He pointed to a rifle that glowed with blue light. This is a plasma rifle. It fires concentrated energy hot enough to melt through any known material. It never runs out of ammunition because it draws power from the universe itself. Amy Brooks stepped closer to look. How does it aim? It thinks. Admiral Crexino said proudly. The weapon's computer calculates wind, distance, target movement, and probability. It cannot miss. Ah! He moved to another weapon that looked like a crystal wand. This is a quantum disruptor. Breaks apart the bonds that hold matter together. One shot can destroy a building. Sergeant Romano whistled softly. What about armor? How do you protect against weapons like that? General Thocomar stepped forward. His massive armored body made the room shake with each step. Like this, he said. A shimmering field appeared around him. When Admiral Krexnos fired the plasma rifle at him, the energy just disappeared into the shield. Personal energy shields, General Thocomar explained. They can stop any projectile, any energy beam, any physical attack. They are powered by the same force that holds atoms together. Morrison watched carefully. What about hand-to-hand combat? The aliens made sounds that might have been laughter. Hand-to-hand combat. Admiral Krexnos said. Why would anyone fight? With their bare hands? When they have technology? We prefer to end conflicts quickly and cleanly, Zixthera explained. Physical violence is messy and inefficient. They moved to another area where holographic projections showed a battle. Alien ships fired beams of light at each other across vast distances. When the beams hit, enemy ships simply vanished or broke apart into perfect pieces. Our ships can fight from thousands of miles away, General Thocomar said. We use computers. To calculate every shot, there is no waste, no mess, no unnecessary destruction. Lieutenant Brooks frowned. What if the computers are wrong? What if something unexpected happens? Our computers are never wrong, Admiral Krexnos said. They process millions of variables every second. They predict enemy movements before the enemy even decides what to do. The holographic battle continued. Morrison noticed that all the ships moved in predictable patterns. They stayed far apart and fired in straight lines. Everything was precise and mathematical. Now watch how easily we defeat human-style warfare, Zixthera said. The projection changed to show human soldiers and vehicles. But these were just computer copies based on what the aliens had observed. The holographic humans used tanks, jets, and rifles just like real Earth forces. The alien weapons destroyed the human forces in seconds. Plasma beams melted through tank armor like butter. Energy shields stopped every bullet. Computer-guided missiles hit every target perfectly. As you can see, General Thocomar said, your primitive weapons are no match for advanced technology. Morrison nodded, but he was thinking about something else. All the alien weapons were designed to fight other aliens who used similar technology. They were made for enemies who fought at long distances with energy weapons and computer guidance. But what if an enemy fought differently? What if they got close? What if they didn't rely on computers? What if they did things that the alien computers couldn't predict? Very impressive, Morrison said out loud. Your technology is certainly advanced. Admiral Krexnos seemed pleased. We are prepared to offer your species protection, Captain Morrison. In exchange for some territory and resources, we will defend Earth from any threats. Our weapons could never match yours, Morrison agreed. But I'm curious about one thing. What is that? Asked Zixthera. Have you ever fought an enemy that didn't use energy weapons? Someone who fought up close instead of at a distance? The aliens looked at each other. Why would any intelligent species choose to fight at close range? General Thocomar asked. It would be suicide. Morrison smiled, but not in a friendly way. Odd. On Earth, we have a saying. Never bring a knife to a gunfight. But sometimes the knife wins anyway. The aliens didn't understand what he meant. They thought human weapons were primitive because they were simple. But Morrison was beginning to think that simple might be exactly what the galaxy needed. The next morning, Captain Morrison was drinking coffee in his quarters when the alarm started. The sound was unlike anything he had heard before. It was not the simple beeping of human alarms, but a complex musical pattern that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Lisa Hayes burst through his door without knocking. Captain, something big is happening. The aliens are running around like their station is on fire. Morrison grabbed his uniform jacket. Any idea what's going on? Translation software is having trouble, but I keep hearing one word over and over. Devourers. They rushed to the bridge where Lieutenant Brooks and Sergeant Romano were already waiting. Through the windows, they could see alien ships leaving the station in all directions. Some moved so fast, they looked like streaks of light. Commander, Zixthera's voice came over the communication system. Human guests, please report to the main council chamber immediately. We have an emergency situation. When they arrived, the council chamber was in chaos. Aliens were shouting in dozens of different languages. Holographic displays showed star maps with red warning symbols spreading across them like a disease. Admiral Krexnos saw them enter. His forearms were moving rapidly as he worked on multiple computer displays at once. Humans, you need to see this. We are facing a threat that could destroy all life in the galaxy. Zixthera stood at the main display. Her crystal body was flashing. Red and orange colors Morrison had not seen before. 3 hours ago, our scout ships detected movement on the galaxy's outer edge. Devourers have begun their advance toward the core worlds. General Thokomar pointed to the display with one massive finger. Look at this. 12 star systems have gone dark in the past day. Not destroyed. Dark, as if they never existed. Morrison studied the map. The red symbols showed a pattern moving steadily toward the more populated areas of the galaxy. What exactly are these devourers? We don't know, admitted Zixthera. They appeared 50 years ago at the very edge of our galaxy. At first, we thought they were just another species, expanding their territory. Admiral Krexnos pulled up new images. They showed ships unlike anything Morrison had ever seen. They looked organic, like they had been grown rather than built. Their surfaces were covered in what looked like scales or armor plates that moved and shifted. The first time we encountered them, we sent a diplomatic mission, Admiral Krexnos continued. The ships vanished, not destroyed. They just disappeared without any signal or trace. So you sent warships? Lieutenant Brooks asked. General Thokomar's armor made grinding sounds as he moved. We sent our best battle fleet. 300 ships with our most advanced weapons. The display showed the battle. Morrison watched as the alien fleet fired their plasma weapons at the Devourer ships. The first few shots seemed to damage the strange vessels. Parts of their hulls melted or exploded, but then something changed. The same weapons that had worked moments before suddenly had no effect. The plasma beams seemed to pass right through the enemy ships as if they were not there. Their hulls adapted, Zixthera explained. After the first few hits, our weapons became useless. Adapted? How? Sergeant Romano asked. We still don't understand it completely, Admiral Krexnos said. Their ships seem to analyze any attack and then become immune to it. Energy weapons, quantum disruptors, molecular destabilizers. After the first contact, nothing works. Morrison felt a chill run down his spine. What happened to your fleet? The display showed the end of the battle. The Devourer ships moved closer to the alien fleet. Where they touched the alien vessels, the ships simply dissolved. Not exploded, not destroyed. They just came apart like sugar and water. We lost all 300 ships, General Thokomar said quietly. Not a single survivor. The room fell silent. Morrison looked around at the aliens. For the first time since arriving, he saw fear in their faces. How many times have you fought them since then? Morrison asked. 7 major battles, Zixthera replied. We have lost over 2,000 ships. Each time we try new weapons, new tactics. Each time the Devourers adapt within minutes. Admiral Krexnos showed more battle footage. We tried attacking from different angles. They adapted. We used new types of energy weapons. They adapted. We even tried computer viruses to attack their technology. They absorbed our programs and used them against us. Lieutenant Brooks was studying the images carefully. What about their weaknesses? Every enemy has something they can't defend against. If they have weaknesses, we haven't found them, General Thokomar said. Our best scientists have studied every piece of data from the battles. The Devourers seem to be perfect killing machines. Morrison looked at the star map again. The red symbols were much closer to populated worlds than they had been at the beginning of the meeting. How long before they reach major population centers? He asked. At their current speed for days, Zixthera said. Maybe 5 if they stop. To consume more star systems along the way? Consume. Admiral Krexnos pulled up another display. It showed a solar system before and after the Devourers had passed through. The before image showed planets, moons, asteroid belts, and a bright star. The after image showed empty space. They don't just destroy, he explained. They take everything. The planets, the star, even the space dust. Nothing remains. Morrison felt his stomach turn. How many people lived in that system? 40 billion. Zixthora said softly. The room was quiet again. Morrison could hear his own heartbeat. Sergeant Romano broke the silence. What's the plan? You must have some kind of strategy. General Thokmar made a sound that might have been laughter, but it was not happy. Our strategy is to evacuate as many people as possible and hope the Devourers eventually stop. That's it? Lieutenant Brooks asked. You're just going to run? What else can we do? Admiral Crexnose spread all forearms wide. Our most advanced weapons are useless. Our best ships are destroyed in minutes. These creatures are beyond anything. We understand. Morrison stood up and walked to the main display. He studied the images of the Devourer ships, their movements, their tactics. The aliens watched him, probably wondering what a primitive human could possibly contribute. But Morrison was thinking about something the aliens had said. The Devourers adapted to energy weapons, exotic matter manipulation, and computer-guided attacks. They had evolved to counter the advanced technology that all galactic species used. But what if someone attacked them with weapons they had never seen before? What if someone used tactics that were too primitive for them to understand? Morrison turned back to the council. I want to study all your battle records. Every piece of data you have about these Devourers. Why? Asked Zixthera. What could you possibly learn that our best minds have missed? Morrison smiled. And for the first time since the alarm started, it was a real smile. Sometimes the best way to solve a problem is to think like someone who doesn't know it's impossible. Morrison spent 18 hours studying the alien battle records. He watched every fight, every failed attack, every moment when the Devourers adapted to new weapons. Lieutenant Brooks brought him coffee and sandwiches while he worked, but he barely noticed the food. Captain, you need to sleep, she said after finding him still at the computer at 3 a.m. Look at this, Amy, Morrison said, pointing to the screen. Every time the aliens attack, they use the same basic approach. Long-range energy weapons, computer targeting. The Devourers learn to counter it within minutes. Brooks sat down next to him. So what are you thinking? Morrison pulled up a new file. The Devourers have never faced kinetic weapons. Look at their adaptation patterns. They counter plasma by absorbing energy. They stop quantum disruptors by shifting their molecular structure. But what happens when someone just shoots a big piece of metal at them really fast? You think our primitive weapons might work? I think their adaptation is designed for advanced technology. They've probably never seen anything as simple as a bullet or a bomb. The next morning, Morrison called for an emergency meeting with the Galactic Council. When he explained his theory, the aliens looked at him like he had lost his mind. You want to attack the Devourers with metal projectiles? Admiral Crexnose asked. Captain, these creatures have destroyed our most powerful fleets. How can primitive weapons succeed where advanced technology has failed? General Thokmar shook. His massive head? It would be suicide. Your ships would be destroyed before you got close enough to use such short-range weapons. Morrison stood up. Maybe. But right now, you're facing the extinction of every living thing in the galaxy. What do you have to lose by letting us try? Commander Zix. Thera's crystal body flickered between different colors. Even if we agreed, you only have one ship. The Devourers travel in fleets of hundreds. Give me more ships, Morrison said simply. Human. Ships? You only have a few, and they're primitive. I don't need human ships. I need any ships you can spare. We'll modify them with our weapons. The council members whispered to each other in their different languages. Finally, Zixthera spoke. There's a small Devourer scout fleet 3 hours away. 5 ships, much smaller than their main forces. If you can defeat them, we will consider your proposal for the larger threat. Deal, Morrison said. 2 hours later, Morrison stood on the bridge of a hastily assembled human task force. The aliens had given him 12 ships, old cargo vessels, patrol boats, and research ships. Nothing fancy, but they would fly, and they had room for human weapons. Sergeant Romano had worked miracles in those 2 hours. Captain, we've mounted railguns on 8 ships. The other 4 are carrying nuclear missiles, disguised as cargo containers. It's not pretty, but it should work. Lieutenant Brooks was at the tactical station. Sir, the alien observers are keeping their distance. I don't think they expect us to survive this. Lisa Hayes looked up from communications. Captain, I'm picking up the Devourer scout fleet. 5 ships, just like they said. They're heading straight for us. Morrison looked out at space. In the distance, he could see the alien ships that would be watching the battle. Some of the galaxy's best military minds were about to see how humans fought when everything was on the line. All ships, this is Morrison. Remember, we get in close and hit them hard. No fancy tactics, no computer guidance. We do this the old-fashioned way. Devourer ships appeared on the main screen. They looked even stranger up close, like living. Things made of metal and shadow. Their surfaces moved and shifted as if they were breathing. Range 2,000 kilometers, Brooks reported. Hold fire, Morrison ordered. Let them get closer. The alien observers were probably wondering why the humans were not attacking. Every other species had tried to fight the Devourers from maximum range, but Morrison had studied those battles. Long-range attacks gave the Devourers time to adapt. 1,000 kilometers, Brooks said. Still too far? Let them come. 500 kilometers? They're starting to target us. Morrison could see energy building around the Devourer ships. Whatever weapons they used, they were charging. Up to fire. 200 kilometers. Now, Morrison shouted. All ships, fire everything. Hey. The human fleet opened fire at point-blank range. 8 railguns fired tungsten rods at incredible speed. The metal projectiles hit the Devourer ships before their adaptive systems could react. The first Devourer ship shuddered as the railgun rounds punched straight through its hull. No energy to absorb, no exotic matter to counter, just solid metal. Moving very fast. It's direct hits on targets 1 and 2, Brooks reported. Their hulls are breaching. But the Devourers were already adapting. Morrison watched as their armor plates shifted and thickened. The next railgun shots hit, but did less damage. Romano, now, Morrison ordered. The 4 ships carrying nuclear missiles launched their cargo containers at the damaged Devourer vessels. The containers looked like normal cargo, nothing threatening. The Devourer ships ignored them. The nuclear explosions lit up space like new suns. The electromagnetic pulses scrambled electronics for hundreds of kilometers. Radiation flooded the area in waves that no living thing was meant to survive. The Devourers had never encountered anything like it. Their biotechnology, designed to adapt to precise energy weapons, was overwhelmed by the massive, crude destruction of nuclear bombs. To devour ships simply broke apart. A third was spinning out of control, its living hull trying to repair. Damage it could not understand. The remaining 2 are turning to run, Brooks reported. Don't let them escape, Morrison said. If they report back what we used, the main fleet will adapt. The human ships chased down the fleeing Devourers. More railgun fire and a second nuclear explosion finished the job. When the battle was over, Morrison's small fleet hung in space, surrounded by debris that had once been considered invincible. In the distance, the alien observer ships were moving closer, probably unable to believe what they had just seen. Lisa Hayes was the first to speak. Captain, we're receiving messages from the Galactic Council fleet. I think they want to talk. Morrison smiled. Put them through. I think we just changed how this galaxy thinks about primitive weapons. Admiral Krexnos appeared on the main screen. For the first time since Morrison had met him, the alien looked impressed. Captain Morrison, how did you do that? Simple, Morrison replied. We hit them with something they'd never seen before, something too primitive for them to understand. How to counter? The greatest military minds in the galaxy were about to learn that sometimes the best technology is the kind that just works. News of the human victory spread through the galaxy faster than light itself. Within hours, every inhabited world knew that the supposedly primitive humans had destroyed 5 Devourer ships without losing a single vessel. For the first time in 50 years, someone had found a way to fight the galaxy's greatest threat. Captain Morrison found himself summoned before the full Galactic Council just 12 hours after the battle. This time, the massive chamber was packed with representatives from hundreds of species. They had come from across the galaxy to see the humans had done the impossible. The mood in the room was completely different from Morrison's first visit. Instead of condescending smiles and dismissive laughter, he saw faces filled with hope and desperate curiosity. Some aliens were taking notes on devices he could not identify. Others were recording everything with holographic cameras. Commander Zixthera stood at the center of the chamber. Her crystal body was glowing bright gold, a color Morrison had never seen before. Captain Morrison, the Galactic Council, officially requests your assistance in the war against the Devourers. Morrison nodded. We're honored to help, but I need to know, are you prepared to do things our way? Admiral Krexno stepped forward. His forearms were moving nervously. Captain, we analyzed the remains of the Devourer ships. Your kinetic weapons caused damage that our scanners show should have been impossible. How so? The Devourer's adaptive armor is designed to counter energy-based attacks. When our plasma hits them, the armor absorbs the energy and becomes immune. But your metal projectiles don't use energy, they use simple physics. Mass times velocity equals force. General Thokomar's massive frame shook as he spoke. The armor tried to adapt to your railgun rounds, but there was nothing to adapt to. You cannot make armor immune to a piece of metal moving at high speed. It will always punch through if it hits hard enough. Lieutenant Brooks, who had been invited to the council session, raised her hand. What about the nuclear weapons? Did they adapt to those? Zixthera consulted a floating display. The nuclear explosions created too much damage too quickly. Devourer's biotechnology could not repair itself fast enough. It was like trying to heal from a fire while still standing in the flames. Morrison felt a grim satisfaction. So our primitive weapons work because they're too simple to counter. Exactly, said Admiral Krexnos. We have been thinking like advanced civilizations for so long that we forgot the basic principles of warfare. Sometimes the most effective weapon is the one that just destroys things. A new alien spoke up from the crowd. This one looked like a tree made of silver metal. Captain Morrison, we have detected the main Devourer fleet. It consists of over 300 ships and is heading toward our most populated systems. Can your methods work against such numbers? Morrison looked at his small crew. Lieutenant Brooks nodded slightly. Sergeant Romano gave him a thumbs up. Lisa Hayes smiled encouragingly. We'll need more ships, Morrison said, and we'll need to modify them with human weapons. Can you provide both? We can give you 200 vessels. Zixthera replied. Cargo ships, patrol boats, research vessels, anything that can carry your weapons. What about volunteers? Morrison asked. This is going to be dangerous. We'll be fighting at close range against an enemy that has destroyed thousands of your ships. The response surprised him. Dozens of aliens stood up around the chamber. Some had tentacles, others had wings, and many had body types Morrison could not even describe. But they all had the same expression, determination, Captain said. The Silver Tree alien. My people have lost 3 colonies to the Devourers. We volunteer. Creature that looked like a floating crystal spoke next. The Devourers consumed my home world. My entire family is gone. I will fly any ship you give me. More aliens stood up, warriors, engineers, pilots, and scientists. Of them willing to risk their lives using weapons they had called primitive just days before? Morrison felt a lump in his throat. Thank you, all of you. Over the next 2 days, Sergeant Romano worked with alien engineers to modify 200 ships with human weapons. They mounted railguns, missile launchers, and even simple cannons that fired explosive shells. The aliens were amazed at how basic the weapons were, but they had seen the battle footage. They knew these simple devices could do what their advanced technology could not. Lieutenant Brooks trained alien crews in human combat tactics. Forget everything you know about long-range precision fighting, she told them. We get in close, we hit hard, and we don't stop shooting until the enemy is dead. The aliens struggled with the concept at first. Their military training emphasized careful planning, computer calculations, and minimal risk. Human tactics seemed chaotic and dangerous. "What if we make mistakes?" asked one alien pilot. "Then we adapt and keep fighting," Brooks replied. "That's what humans do. We don't need perfect plans. We need the will to keep trying until we win." When the main Devourer fleet was detected entering the core systems, Morrison led his mixed human-alien armada into battle. 200 ships crewed by beings from dozens of different worlds, all armed with weapons their ancestors might have used thousands of years ago. The battle was nothing like the clean, precise warfare the galaxy was used to. Ships closed to point-blank range and hammered each other with kinetic rounds and explosives. Nuclear missiles lit up space like fireworks. The Devourers found themselves facing an enemy that fought like barbarians, but with the courage of heroes. When it was over, the Devourer fleet was destroyed. Not a single enemy ship escaped to warn others about the new human tactics. The galaxy was safe, at least for now. Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking out at the debris field that had once been an unstoppable enemy force. Around him, alien crew members were cheering in languages he did not understand, but their joy was universal. Admiral Krexnos appeared on the main screen. "Captain Morrison, the Galactic Council has voted unanimously. Humanity is hereby granted full membership in the Galactic Alliance with all rights and privileges." "Thank you," Morrison replied. "But we want to be partners, not rulers." "Of course. In fact, we have a proposal. Would humanity be willing to serve as military advisors to the Galactic Fleet? It seems we have much to learn about effective warfare." Morrison smiled. "We'd be honored. Just remember, sometimes the best weapon is the one that works, not the one that looks impressive." As news of the victory spread across the galaxy, humans became known not as a primitive species, but as the warriors who had saved civilization itself. They had proven that there was wisdom in simplicity, strength in directness, and power in refusing to give up. The aliens learned that human weapons were not primitive at all. They were proven. And in a universe full of complex problems, humanity had reminded everyone that sometimes the best solution is the simplest one that gets the job done.